The following program is a production of Ho'ike Kauai Community Media.
Aloha and welcome to Talkin Trash, the show where we talk recycling, compost, and yes, garbage. I'm Max Richardson.
And I'm Allison Fraley, and today's episode is about common recycling myths.
But before we dive in, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button and follow Ho'ike for more amazing content. Stay informed, inspired, and connected with the stories that matter most to Kauai. And if you're listening as a podcast, you can subscribe to us on your podcatcher of choice, and links to all of our stuff are down in the show notes. All right, let's go ahead and get into the questions, Allison. So, common recycling myths. So there's a lot of things that people just assume to be the truth or are common knowledge that are actually wildly misguided.
Yeah, and that's true not only here, but like throughout the U.S. These are just common myths that I want to talk about today.
Yeah, things people think. All right, and so the first one is there's a myth all over the U.S., including here on Kauai, that recyclables that y'all collect just end up going into the landfill anyway. So is that true? Do you guys just throw all the recycling in the garbage?
No, it is not true.
Okay, good.
So though people think that, and what really happens is that the recyclables are collected by our contractor, Garden Isle Disposal, and they process the materials at their facility, which is in Nawiliwili Harbor. And they separate, they come in source separated into the recycling bins at the 8 locations throughout Kauai.
Right, that's why I have all the different bins in my garage, so I can put cans in here and boxes in there.
Yeah, and there may be some contaminants in there, and so they do have to sort out contaminants. So it's really important that people recycle correctly. But once they have their loads that are sorted of all the different contaminants, then they put it into a baler, which is a machine that squishes it into a big cube, or otherwise known as a bale, and then they ship those off to market, and we get reports of all of the shipments that happen every month, what they took in, what they put out as a shipment, and we get the bills of lading back as well to show that it actually was shipped off. And so none of that stuff. And also, if it went to the landfill, we would know because we operate the landfill.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And so the markets for these materials changes, periodically depending on what market is paying the most for certain things. So, for instance, cardboard and paper are currently going to Taiwan markets. Okay. And then metal, like aluminum, is going to Korean markets right now. And then the plastics are going to Indonesia. And the bottles, glass bottles, are going to California. Okay. Where they're all processed.
And so what are these, when these places get, let's say the aluminum cans, they just melt them down and make them into new aluminum cans?
Aluminum is the most recyclable. And so, yes, it's made into cans usually. Yeah. Cool.
Okay. And then the similar processes are done with the rest of this. So they are they're taking these goods, they buy the recycled goods from us, break it down, and then construct it into new cardboard or new plastic bottles or new whatever.
They go to, like, the paper products go to a paper mill and they do a paper processing there. The plastic products are pelletized or shredded and then pelletized, and then they're made into new products.
Cool. Yeah. Very cool. All right. And also a little note about that cardboard baler. If you guys watch the theme song, if you're watching the video version or you're watching this on television, I got some really cool shots of that baler. So pay attention next time you're watching the show. You'll see little flashes of the baler making a bale. Okay, so here's one that this is probably the one that I hear the most, other people saying, is that all plastic is recyclable, because see, it has the chasing arrow symbol at the bottom, which I think us lay people mistakenly call the recycling symbol.
Yeah, it does look like a recycling symbol. And there's 7 types of plastic, but beyond that, there's even more types of plastic. So plastic recycling is super complicated, and it's not all recyclable here on Kauai or in many places in the U.S. So what we accept here on Kauai are number 1 and number 2 plastic bottles and jars only. So we don't take number 1 and number 2 plastic trays, things like the clamshells that you get at like a takeout type of plastic, or like a tofu tray. That's molded plastic, which is different than blown plastic, which is the bottle. Those plastics melt at different temperatures. Okay. And same with all the 3s through 7. So your film plastics, like bag plastics. We don't have a lot of those because we do have the plastic bag reduction law. So we don't have carry-out plastic bags.
Right.
And if anybody hears about that, let me know, because you can call us at 241-4841 and report it, because we got to make sure everyone's complying with that law. But just in general, the film plastics, we don't take those in the bins as well. However, there are large retailers that will take those, like Safeway and Target have bag collection bags up at the front of their stores.
Okay, so and film plastics would also be things like saran wrap and trash bags.
Yeah, things like that.
Okay. So and I think one thing that I've heard a lot of people say is like, why is it so differentiated? Why are they so picky? It's all plastic. And one thing that I kind of knew, but I didn't really know until I started getting into 3D printing actually, is that plastic is a really imprecise term. It's a word for like a whole spectrum of different materials that kind of all look and feel the same, but chemically they're super different. You can make what we call plastic out of all kinds of different chemicals, and when you're melting those chemicals down to mix them together and make more plastic, they don't really mix if they're not the same.
Yes.
That's why they're so picky about plastics.
Yes, exactly.
Because you've got, like polyethylene, but then you've got like polyurethane, completely different thing, and then you have your polylactic acid, another completely different. That's an organic compound. It doesn't even have anything to do with. So they're way different. If you want to get into the nerdy stuff, but even though it all looks like plastic to us, and that's why they stamp a number on the bottom.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
And another common myth we have here is that it's okay to throw away organic things because when they go into the landfill, they just putrefy and compostify. Yeah, people think that. And, it's a logical thought. Yeah.
Because if you put it in your backyard composting bin, which we give away for free, that would happen. But in the landfill, what we do is we're layering the trash that we receive every day. And then we do have to cover it periodically. That's EPA regulations and state regulations on how we manage the landfill. And so once it's covered like that, it's an anaerobic situation where it's not going to be able to break down like it would in nature.
Right.
It's almost like hermetically sealed inside of there. And I've heard stories early in my career about people digging up landfills and finding newspapers from decades ago that they could still read.
Wow. Yeah. You would expect those to rot away relatively quickly.
Right. So any kind of organic material that you're thinking, it's fine, if there's a way to recycle it, you can compost in your backyard, food and yard waste. You can recycle paper, cardboard, those, especially cardboard, since people are doing a lot of online shopping. Cardboard is really important to put in the recycle bin and not into the landfill, because it's just going to sit in the landfill and take up space, and we have limited space in the landfill.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing that the landfill engineering is really designed to combat is a lot of times when some of these, I think you called them putrescible materials, when they do break down, they release a lot of heat and hot gas, and that can cause garbage fires, underground garbage fires, right?
Yeah.
I've heard of those happening before.
That's a great point. And then also nowadays, we have batteries in there, the NiCad batteries, which can also cause fires, like any just common, like a toothbrush that had a battery in it, which you can't really even take out, could potentially cause a fire in the landfill. We don't have a lot of those, are very, very rare, but something definitely to think about.
So we've got to be careful what kinds of stuff we throw away. They're not just making these rules for us because they like making rules.
Yes. Also, I've heard people think that like if they put something recyclable into a dumpster, that it will just get sorted by somebody.
Yeah.
Have you heard of anything like that?
I have heard people speculate that, but yeah, if you've ever seen how they handle the dumpster, a truck just comes and just dumps it into a trailer, and then the trailer goes to the landfill and just dumps it. Nobody knows what's in there.
Yeah.
So I had a follow-up question about that. So you said contaminants a lot of times end up in otherwise recyclable bottles and jars.
Right.
So in a situation like that, like let's say I drink a bottle of milk and I just take the bottle of milk, throw it right into the recycling. So it still has some milk residue in it.
Yeah.
What do they do? Do they just, does that whole entire bottle considered a contaminant? Do they wash it?
Yeah, they're not going to wash it here. They don't have the resources to do that. So they're going to have to make a judgment call. Milk is a good example because it could be especially disgusting if people leave a bunch of milk inside of a container. So it depends on how clean it is. Definitely with milk, you should rinse it. Other beverages, I'd say like beer or something like that, you can just get as much out as you can.
Right.
And it should be pretty good to go. But anything that had a food-ish product like milk in there or a thicker product, you would want to. And, also we accept metal cans. And so there could be a lot of stuff that could be gross and goopy in there, like if you are doing dog food or cat food or something like that. So those would need to be rinsed very well in order to be recycled.
Right. Okay.
And then another, when I say contaminant, would be like just if you're putting the wrong thing in there, like if you put cardboard in with the paper, those are sold to different markets.
Right.
And so they do have to hand sort out these things, and they usually can do it, but just follow the rules as much as possible. They're on our website. They're on... They're in our recycling guide. It's a paper guide we give out for free. And then also there are labels on the bins when you go to recycle.
Yeah, and if you look close at the labels on the bins, the fine print actually explains what the terms mean. So, like, because I remember the first time I ever went to sort the recycling, and it was like cardboard and mixed paper, and I was like, how the heck do I know what's cardboard and what's paper? But it says, box board, newspaper.
Yeah.
Copy paper.
Don't really read the signs that much. We think that's the theory, but it'd be really nice if people did because the information's right there.
I think you're onto something with that theory. People don't like to read signs, but read the signs because they tell you how you're supposed to recycle. And so when these contaminants, like the milk example, that specific bottle, that would end up going to the landfill,
It
right?
would. And same with the smelly dog food can or whatever. If it's just too
contaminated to recycle.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I bring that up is not to be like, gotcha. The reason I bring that up is because if folks are concerned about their recycling ending up being thrown away instead of recycled, that's probably the number one reason that ends up happening is if you're putting dirty stuff in the recycling.
Yeah.
So, if people... You're already making the effort to sort your recycling and drive it down to the redemption center and chuck it in the bin. Just make that little bit extra effort and rinse out your gross stuff before you chuck it, and it'll make a lot more of a difference than if you didn't. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I thought of another one.
Oh, well, let's hear it.
Some people think that if they put plastic into the recycling bin, even if we don't accept it, that somehow we might be able to recycle it. And we call that wishful recycling. And so we really encourage people to know the rules, which are posted on the bins, which you can call us at 808-241-4841, find out what's recyclable, and then only recycle what we're taking. And we even use this term in the past. It's called when in doubt, throw it out. And that can be really upsetting or offensive to people that are avid recyclers. But we really don't want to get into the situation where people are just hoping we'll take something, ignoring any rules and just throwing them in there.
Right. Yeah. It makes all the people handling the recycling, it just makes their job a lot harder.
It does. And
ultimately doesn't have any beneficial environmental impact.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a cute term, wishful recycling. It's like, I hope the recycling fairy comes.
Yes.
And takes away my number 7 cat food jug or cat litter jugs and stuff,
Yeah.
So what should we do with our 3s through 7s? Those, we throw those in the garbage, or?
Yeah. Well, you should try to avoid buying them if you can. I know that's a tall order because there are certain things like yogurt containers.
Yeah.
They're number 5s usually, and they're not recyclable. Someday a yogurt company will start making something different,
Yeah.
But to avoid any of those non-recyclables, and then to reuse them, like if you have the yogurt containers, let's say, you could use them for a different purpose, like storing nuts and bolts. I don't know.
Yeah, or I've seen a lot of people do that. Use old yogurt cups for nuts and bolts, and I've seen a lot of people use them for seedlings for plants.
Yeah.
So you need a smaller pot when you first take your cuttings or your seedlings.
Yeah.
I've seen people use those as starter pots a lot.
Yeah, so source reduction and reuse are always your options before you go to recycling anyway. You should be thinking about that with everything that you generate.
All right, cool. Well, on that note, I actually saw a pretty cool YouTube video recently of a guy was saving up all his aluminum cans for like a year, and then he melted them all down into aluminum ingots, and then his wife, I think, made like jewelry out of the aluminum, because he had a metal furnace.
Now that's awesome recycling right there.
Yeah, that's
the real recycling.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
So yeah, holidays are coming up. Maybe ask for a furnace for Christmas. All right. Well, if there's nothing else no other myths we can tackle. I mean, I'm sure there's
Yeah. Well, maybe the audience could send some in for next time.
Yeah.
Let's
hear from you guys. That's a great idea. So my email address, if you want to send us in questions or myths or comments or just anything you want to say to me or Allison, you can send me an email at mrichardson@hoike.org. If you're watching it as a video, it'll be at the bottom of the screen. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, just take a look in the show notes. And you can let us know your concerns, ask us your questions, and I'll make sure that they make it into the cards, and we will answer your question right here on the show. And speaking of, we had a comment recently I just want to address. Don't worry, I have trouble taking myself seriously as well, so you're not alone. Somebody said, I can't take this dude seriously with his pink hair.
Oh, jeez.
If I took myself super seriously, I wouldn't dye my hair pink. So. All right, well, thanks so much for being on the show, Allison. Is there anything else you want to mention before we sign off?
No, that's it for today. Thanks.
All right, sounds good. Well, that's our show. It's a short one this month. As we're recording this, it's the week before Christmas. So thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to take a look next month when we'll come back here and talk more trash. Aloha.
Ho'ike Kauai Community Media's president and CEO is Allegra Gaines. Administrative assistant, Leiko Someta. Production and education services by Roger Olson. Production and IT services by Max Richardson. News and events producer, Trisha Allen. County producer and social media manager, Olivia Franco.